My mission is honestly to help people understand how normal and common it is to struggle the way that you are struggling. When it comes to the label of addiction, when it comes to the label of alcoholism, to the label of substance abuse, there is a lot of stigma tied to it because we have a very specific picture in mind. I healed my own anxiety and my own depression and my own addiction, and I've noticed that has really been a plague for so many people in restaurants and hospitality. So people ask me why I made this podcast, and it's really for the people who are sober curious, the people who are sober minded, the people who think that maybe they might need to make a change, and the people who just want to improve their lives. If you're looking for healing, if you're looking for personal transformation, if you're looking for something that will just give you that pep in your step and that motivation, that is who this is for. Something about me that a lot of people, I guess, they don't know is that I've worked in restaurants and hospitality for over 15 years now, and the most common issue that I've seen across the board, hands down, is substance abuse and problems with addiction. And I think from personal experience, I healed my own anxiety and my own depression and my own addiction. And I've noticed that has really been a plague for so many people in restaurants and hospitality. So I've also made this with those people in mind too, because you work so much and you feel like you need an escape, but you need something that's healthy for you so you don't feel like you are drowning. Because I know what it's like when you feel like you are drowning. I know what it's like when you feel like you have to work Monday through Friday. You're working 40 to 50 hours a week. You are exhausted, you are depressed, you're anxious, and you just need something to take away that pain. And you need something to numb you. That sense of escapism, that is such a common denominator that we all go through that we don't talk about enough. And so I really made this with those people in mind. The people who are struggling with addiction, the people who are struggling with escapism, the people who have things that they need to unpack and they don't know how to get there yet, the people who might not have access to therapy or they might be a little bit scared, the people who need something different in their lives. They want to make a change. They want to find a new environment. They want to find new friends. They want to find new habits. They want to be a better version of themselves. They want the transformation. They want the personal transformation, the healing, but they just don't know how to get there yet. And I've been through that shit and I know what it's like. So this is for you.
Easiest thing that you saw in restaurants when you were working in restaurants?
Doing cocaine.
All right.
No, the craziest issue that people have when they work in restaurants is really drinking and doing drugs on the job. I'm just speaking from personal experience. When you're so stressed out and you need that form of escape and you feel like you need to medicate yourself to get through the rest of the shift because you have high amounts of stress, high amounts of pressure, and high amounts of unrealistic expectations that you have to meet when you are in a public space. Those are all of the factors that come into play that stress us out. Normally people, when they're working in corporate jobs, right, they have happy hour, they have mixers, they have team bonding activities where it's normalized a little bit more for them to have that kind of, that break after work, that reset for themselves. When it comes to restaurants and hospitality, your schedule's hectic, your schedule's unpredictable, and you don't know when you're going to be on the job and off the job. So a lot of the times, the people, they medicate when they're on the job, as if that's normal. And it's been a culture that we've normalized over the years because that's just all we know, right? When you're in corporate, the difference between restaurants and corporate, when you're in restaurants, the schedule is all over the place. You don't have a set schedule. You don't have a fixed schedule during the daytime where you can leave and have a little bit of a break from your day job, and you can have some downtime, and you can have that reprieve. You have a reprieve and you have a break after work when you're in corporate. When you're in restaurants, you're basically stuck in that environment till God knows when. And so it could be anywhere from a 7-hour to an 11-hour shift. You are there forever, it feels like. It feels like a living hell. Over and over and over again. And the variable factors that come into play in that environment are the people. And we know how crazy people can be. So when you are in that role where you have to have a very set presentation to present yourself to people, because for some reason your value is tied to how much money that you can make and how much money they're going to tip you. So now you have to put on this facade, and in order to put on that facade, a lot of people feel the need to medicate and to do drugs and to have this type of, maybe liquid courage a little bit more, or stress relief. And that's the issue that people have in restaurants. You are consistently under high stakes, what feels like a high stake environment, and unrealistic expectations with a high volume amount of people, with so much unpredictability. And it's literally every single thing that is designed to be stressful. And you have no escape because you have to be in that environment to make the money. That's the issue with people in restaurants.
What was it like for you in the beginning of your sobriety journey? Like, take me to day one, take one, before any relapses. Like, you're still high off the last one, drunk off the last one.
Oh,
and
man.
You're like, I'm gonna stop doing this, and then that next day comes and you stopped. That very first time around, very beginning of your sobriety journey. What was that like?
Oh my God! Wow.
How old were you?
24 years old when I first tried to stop and realized I had a problem, and then actually accepted the fact that I had a problem. That was the beginning of it. That was awful. It was such unnecessary mayhem that I did to myself. It was so destructive. It was so chaotic and hectic. It was so impossible.
And then you wake up the next morning and you're like, all right. What was that like?
I think we all come to a point where it just feels like you hit rock bottom for the last time. You hit rock bottom for the last time, and you are so tired and fed up with everything that you're doing to yourself. And so I think a lot of the issues that people have when it comes to quitting and that day one after they quit is not understanding the level of determination you have because you are so disgusted with yourself. The level of determination really supersedes the level of self-loathing and self-destruction. That is what happens on day one. You've been so fed up. You're tired of your nonsense. You're tired of being sick and tired. That's what happens on day one. You don't have a plan yet. You figure it out and you just say like, hey, I'm just not going to do this fucked up shit to myself today. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. But I should stop. So I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
That's what happens on day one.
Now you're on day
4.5 years.
What's the main takeaway that you have? If you could go back in time and talk to day one Raven with 4.5 years, what would you say to her?
There's a way out. If I could go back to day one and talk to myself before, at the very beginning of this journey, I would tell her that there's actually a way out and you are capable. And sometimes you can't take people with you and you're going to have to cut them off and leave them where they are. And if people don't believe in you, that's not your problem. You deserve it.
Yeah.
You deserve it. My mission is honestly to help people understand how normal and common it is to struggle the way that you are struggling. There is so much shame and stigma when it comes to these issues that we have, right? When it comes to the label of addiction, when it comes to the label of alcoholism, when it comes to the label of substance abuse, there is a lot of stigma tied to it because we have a very specific picture in mind because of the social and cultural programming that we've had and the conditioning that we've had, right? So my mission is to make people understand this is literally just embedded in the culture that we have. When you celebrate, you drink. When you're sad, you drink. When you're mourning and grieving, you drink. When you meet people and hang out, you drink. When you're nervous and you need something to boost you up and you need that liquid courage, you drink. When you want to bond with people and hang out and have that bonding and get that dopamine that we have when we connect with each other, you drink and you do drugs and it's so toxic and it's so rampant and just really in the fabric of the culture and the lives that we live on a regular basis, whether it's subconscious or conscious programming. So I need people, my mission is for people to understand how common it is, how normalized it is, and how problematic it is.
Do you think that with how common addiction is, especially all the things that you listed, like celebrate, your work environment, when you're sad, do you think that that's like illness, or do you think that's a symptom of like a bigger thing, like society? Like,
I think it's a symptom.
Out of it.
Yeah. I think the addiction is the symptom of the fact that we forgot how to connect with each other as humans. We've gotten so separated from nature, and we've gotten so separated from ourselves, and we've gotten so separated from God. And so now the Band-Aid that we're putting over that issue has led to substance abuse. We're putting the Band-Aid of substance abuse and addiction over the fact that we have this disconnect with ourselves, we have this disconnect with God, we have this disconnect with nature. And when we understand to have that connection and really foster and nurture that connection more and more in different ways, that's what the solution is.
What would you say to somebody who hears that we've lost our connection with God and just immediately is just like, no, like they've got spiritual trauma, religious trauma, and they're just like, yeah, no, I'm good.
If someone gets turned off by the idea of losing the connection with God, then I think it's important for them to unpack what makes them think that way. When you have a level of detachment and you take a more objective perspective behind that, and you have a level of detachment, and you have to have a critical thinking mindset behind that and understand what led you to that thought process. What led you to growing up and thinking that way? Why do you think that way? How has that affected you in various aspects of life? And then understand God is an omnipresent, conscious energy. God is everywhere you look. Always has been and always will be. And understand it's not about religion. When we think about God, we think about religion because of the way that society has normalized religion, because of the way that religion has been weaponized against certain communities for the benefit and for the profit of other people and for personal gain. So we really have to understand how to detach from that cultural conditioning and that social programming and understand that it's not about religion. It's not about that. It's about having an actual connection with a higher power that is there to help you when you ask for that help, when you are willing to receive that help, when you are in a state of receptivity for that assistance, for that guidance, and understanding that you have spirit guides and you have God as well. You might not be able to see it, you might not be able to understand it, but it's there. It's like gravity, it's like Wi-Fi, it's a force that you cannot see, but it exists, period. And understand that everything is so much bigger than we always think it is. Humans are limited creatures. Humans have limited brains. Everything is more expansive than we have been taught. And so it's so important to unpack that and have a critical thinking under a critical thinking underlying that process of unpacking, of deconstructing, and understanding that God is within you and God is everywhere. And it's not about religion.
What was your relationship with God like when you were in active addiction?
That's a good question. damn.
What was your relationship with God like before you were in active addiction?
Oh my God,
Like
these are so
childhood,
good.
high school?
My relationship with God before I got sober was almost non-existent because I grew up Christian and I have family members who were heavily involved in the church on both sides of my family, and I thought they were, because of different behaviors that I had seen with those group of people in different ways in the church and in my family, it seemed unrealistic. It seemed like a lie. It seemed like a narrative that people wanted me to believe. And I saw a lot of hypocritical, toxic people who were portraying this idea of having godliness when they themselves did not actually exude that behavior. So my relationship with God growing up until around maybe the age of 24 was almost non-existent. I barely believed in God because it was so heavily pushed on me. And then when I decided to start the journey of getting sober, I actually started to understand that God was actually real. God was real. And it kind of, it changed the way I looked at everything. And I learned how to grow a relationship and a working relationship with a higher power and understand that there wasn't any shame and guilt and fear that I had to feel behind that. A lot of us have this internalized fear, this internalized shame, this internalized guilt because of the religious conditioning and because of the programming and because of the nature of how humans have used religion over time. So when it comes to asking God for help, when it comes to having a relationship with God, when it comes to co-creating with a higher power and a collective consciousness, initially it's difficult, it's challenging because it kind of breaks the norm of everything that you've been used to. So I had to learn over time how to ask for signs, ask for help, ask for the tiniest little things because I couldn't figure out how to ask for big things in various moments over time, one day at a time. When it comes to sobriety, I had to ask for help not going out with a certain group of people, help not going to the bars that I used to go to, help not going out at all, help going straight home from work after I got home at midnight instead of staying out until 3 o'clock in the morning for no good reason. I had to learn how to eventually ask for help over and over and over and over and over and over again. It is a repetitive habit that you build over time when it comes to having a relationship with God and understanding that it is subjective to you, it's subjective to who you are, and it's subjective to your own personal experience. Having a relationship with God is a personal experience. It looks different for everybody.